"You're not exactly a priority right now," my mother texted as I sat alone at my promotion dinner. 2 hours later, my mom posted, "Family night out for the real success story." It was my sister. She bought a jet ski. I paid the $2,400 bill, went home, and terminated the mortgage payments I'd been covering for 3 years. Then I left a note on their door, "Let her pay it." By morning, I had 17 missed calls. I, 32M, stared at my phone in the dim lighting of the restaurant, reading my mother's text for the third time. The words burned into my retina like acid. Not exactly a priority right now. I had made reservations at this upscale place downtown specifically to celebrate my promotion to senior financial analyst, something I had worked toward for 5 grueling years. The empty chair across from me seemed to mock my optimism as I sat alone with my untouched steak dinner. The promotion came with a substantial raise and recognition from the company's board of directors. I thought my family would want to celebrate this milestone with me, especially after everything I had done for them over the past 3 years. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was now making enough money to finally stop being their financial safety net, yet they couldn't be bothered to show up for an hour. I scrolled through social media mindlessly while picking at my food, and that's when I saw it. My mother's post from 2 hours ago showed the entire family gathered at the same restaurant chain across town, all smiles and celebration. The caption read exactly as my mother had written it, praising my sister's latest achievement, purchasing a jet ski with money from her part-time retail job. The comments were flooding in with congratulations and heart emojis. My sister had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. She dropped out of college after 2 semesters, moved back home, and had been floating between minimum wage jobs ever since. Meanwhile, I had graduated with honors, landed a stable career, and had been quietly supporting my family's financial needs without complaint. Yet somehow, buying recreational watercraft was considered the real success story worth celebrating. The waiter approached my table with obvious concern, asking if everything was all right with my meal. I told him it was fine and requested the check. As I paid the $120 bill for my solo celebration dinner, a clarity washed over me that I hadn't experienced in years. The financial statements and spreadsheets I worked with daily had trained me to see patterns and make calculated decisions. It was time to apply that same analytical thinking to my personal life. Driving home, I mentally calculated exactly how much money I had funneled into my family's lifestyle over the past 3 years. The mortgage payments alone totaled nearly $86,400. Add in the emergency car repairs, medical bills, property taxes, and various other bailouts, and the number easily exceeded $100,000. Money that could have been my down payment on a house, my emergency fund, or invested for my future. I pulled into my apartment parking lot and sat in my car for several minutes, engine off, contemplating my next move. The family group chat was buzzing with photos from their jet ski celebration dinner. Nobody had even acknowledged my text about the promotion from earlier that morning. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. They had time to celebrate a recreational purchase, but couldn't spare an hour for my career milestone. That night, I opened my laptop and accessed my online banking. The automatic transfer I had set up 3 years ago when my parents nearly lost their house was scheduled to process in 2 days. My finger hovered over the delete button for several seconds before I clicked it. The recurring $2,400 monthly mortgage payment transfer was now terminated. Next, I opened my word processor and began crafting a letter. I kept it simple and direct, explaining that effective immediately, I would no longer be covering their mortgage payments or any other financial obligations. I mentioned that since my sister was apparently doing well enough to make major purchases, perhaps she could take over the family's financial responsibilities. The letter concluded with my decision to step back from family functions until I felt my contributions were properly valued. I printed the letter, sealed it in an envelope, and drove to my parents' house at 2 a.m. The neighborhood was silent as I wedged the envelope between their front door and the frame, making sure it would be impossible to miss. The drive home felt liberating in a way I hadn't anticipated. The next morning started peacefully. I made coffee, read the news, and prepared for another day at work with my new title and responsibilities. My phone had been on silent mode since the previous evening, a habit I had developed to maintain work-life boundaries. When I finally checked it around 10 a.m., the screen showed 17 missed calls, all from family members. The voicemails painted a predictable picture. My mother's first message was confused and slightly annoyed, asking what the letter meant and demanding an explanation. My father's message was more direct, stating that I couldn't just abandon my responsibilities and that we needed to talk immediately. My sister's message was the most telling. She was panicked about potentially having to contribute to household expenses and insisted this was all a misunderstanding. The subsequent messages showed an escalating pattern of panic as they realized I was serious. My mother's tone shifted from annoyed to desperate. My father started mentioning specific bills that were due and how they had been counting on my contribution. My sister's final message was angry, accusing me of being selfish and trying to manipulate the family with money. I listened to each voicemail while sipping my coffee, feeling surprisingly calm about the chaos I had unleashed. For 3 years, I had been the silent financial backbone of their lifestyle, never asking for recognition or even basic appreciation. The promotion celebration debacle had simply been the final straw that broke my willingness to continue this arrangement. Update 1. 3 days passed before I responded to any of their attempts at contact. My mother had resorted to texting me hourly, alternating between guilt trips and threats. She reminded me of everything they had done for me growing up, conveniently omitting the fact that I had more than repaid any parental investment over the past 3 years. She also mentioned that I was being ungrateful and that family obligations didn't have expiration dates. My father tried a different approach, calling my workplace and asking to speak with me about a family emergency. My new position came with an assistant who screened my calls, and she informed me about the situation. I instructed her to tell him that I was unavailable and would contact him when convenient. The power dynamic had shifted, and for the first time, I wasn't jumping to solve their problems immediately. My sister's strategy was the most predictable. She reached out to our extended family, painting me as the villain who had abandoned the family in their time of need. Several cousins and aunts contacted me, expressing concern about the situation and encouraging me to reconsider my decision. What they didn't know was the full financial history of my contributions, something I had never advertised or complained about publicly. On Friday evening, exactly 1 week after my promotion dinner, I finally returned my mother's call. She answered on the first ring, launching immediately into a lecture about family loyalty and responsibility. I let her speak for several minutes before calmly explaining my perspective. I detailed the exact amount of money I had contributed over 3 years, the lack of appreciation or acknowledgement I had received, and how the promotion dinner situation had crystallized my decision to reassess our relationship. My mother's response revealed everything I needed to know about her priorities. Rather than apologizing for missing my celebration or acknowledging my contributions, she focused on how my actions were affecting their financial stability. She mentioned that my sister couldn't possibly cover the mortgage payments on her retail salary, completely missing the irony that my sister had just spent thousands on a jet ski while claiming poverty. I explained to my mother that my decision wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about establishing healthy boundaries and ensuring that my contributions were valued rather than expected. I offered to discuss a more sustainable arrangement where I might occasionally help with genuine emergencies, but the days of automatic monthly payments were over permanently. The conversation ended with my mother threatening to cut contact if I didn't resume the payments immediately. I wished her well and ended the call, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and relief. The family I had been supporting financially wasn't the family I had hoped they would be. Update 2. 2 weeks after terminating the mortgage payments, reality began setting in for my parents. My father called me directly, his tone significantly more humble than previous interactions. He explained that they had received a notice from the mortgage company about the missed payment and late fees. The financial cushion I had provided for 3 years was gone, and they were scrambling to figure out alternative solutions. During this conversation, my father finally acknowledged the extent of my financial contributions over the years. He admitted that they had become too dependent on my support and had taken my generosity for granted. This acknowledgement felt validating, though it came only after their financial security was threatened. My sister had apparently applied for additional hours at her retail job and was looking for a second position to help cover household expenses. The jet ski, purchased just weeks earlier, was now listed for sale online. The irony wasn't lost on me that the same purchase they had celebrated as a major success was now being liquidated to address the financial gap my departure had created. My father asked if we could meet in person to discuss a path forward. I agreed to have lunch with him the following weekend, curious to see if this crisis had genuinely changed their perspective on our family dynamics, or if this was simply an attempt to manipulate me back into my previous role. The lunch meeting was enlightening in ways I hadn't expected. My father looked older and more stressed than I had seen him in years. He began by apologizing for taking my support for granted and acknowledged that they had prioritized my sister's achievements while overlooking my own. This apology felt genuine, though I remained cautious about his motivations. He explained their financial situation in detail, something he had never done previously. Without my monthly contribution, they would need to significantly downsize their lifestyle or risk losing the house within 6 months. My sister's job applications were progressing slowly, and even with additional work, her earning potential wouldn't cover their current expenses. I listened carefully to his explanation, then outlined my conditions for any future financial assistance. First, any help would be temporary and structured with clear timelines and expectations. Second, my contributions would be acknowledged and appreciated rather than assumed. Third, my achievements and milestones would receive the same recognition they gave my sister's activities. My father agreed to these conditions without hesitation, though I wondered if his desperation was driving his compliance rather than genuine change. I offered to cover the next month's mortgage payment while they developed a sustainable long-term plan, but made it clear that this was a one-time bridge payment, not a return to the previous arrangement. Update 3. 3 months have passed since I terminated the automatic mortgage payments, and the results have been mixed but ultimately positive for everyone involved. My parents sold their house and downsized to a smaller place with payments they could actually afford on my father's retirement income and my mother's part-time work. The downsizing was initially traumatic for them, but they've adjusted better than expected. My sister found a second job and has been contributing to household expenses for the first time in years. She sold the jet ski and used the money to help with moving expenses and deposits for their new place. More importantly, she's enrolled in community college classes to complete her degree, something she had avoided for years. The financial pressure appears to have motivated her toward more responsible long-term planning. Our family relationships have improved significantly, though they're different than before. My parents now include me in family decisions and ask for my input rather than simply expecting my financial support. They attended a small celebration dinner I organized for my 3-month work anniversary, and my mother posted about it on social media with genuine pride and gratitude. The most surprising development has been my sister's attitude change. She recently thanked me for forcing her to become more self-sufficient, admitting that she had been taking advantage of my generosity while avoiding adult responsibilities. She's even started budgeting and saving money, skills she had never developed while living under the financial umbrella I had provided. I've resumed limited financial assistance for genuine emergencies, but with clear boundaries and expectations. Last month, I helped with an unexpected medical bill, but only after they had exhausted other options and asked respectfully for help. The dynamic has shifted from expectation to appreciation, which has made all the difference in our relationship quality. The promotion that started this entire situation has led to additional opportunities at work. My improved work-life balance, resulting from reduced family financial stress, has allowed me to focus more energy on professional development. I've been selected for a leadership development program that could lead to further advancement within the next year. Looking back on that lonely promotion dinner, I realize it was the catalyst I needed to establish healthier family boundaries. The revenge wasn't in punishing them financially. It was in forcing all of us to confront the unsustainable dynamics we had created over 3 years. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for family is to stop enabling their poor decisions and force them to develop their own solutions. The 17 missed calls that seemed so urgent at the time now represent a turning point where I learned that my value to my family extended far beyond my bank account. The respect and appreciation I receive now feel genuine because they're based on choice rather than financial dependency. My family learned they could survive without my automatic support, and I learned that setting boundaries doesn't mean abandoning the people you love. Sometimes it means loving them enough to let them grow.